All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are talking about one of the most incredible, most elegant structures in all of biology, the cell membrane. Now, this isn't just some simple bag holding stuff in. Oh no, it is an absolute masterpiece of natural engineering, a living, breathing system that makes life possible. So let's start with the big question. Just picture a cell as this super busy, complex city. It's got to import supplies, export goods, and it absolutely needs top-notch security. So how in the world does it manage all that? How does it decide who gets a visa and who gets bounced at the border?
Well, the answer is its border control system, the cell membrane. And the most important thing to get is that this is not some static, boring brick wall. Nope. It's a fluid, it's responsive, and it is an incredibly smart barrier that's always on the job, making sure the environment inside the cell is just perfect.
Okay, so let's start building this thing. To really understand how this border works, we first have to see what it's made of. Let's get our hands dirty and look at the actual bricks and mortar that construct this amazing fluid wall. So what's the basic recipe? Well, if you were to take a cell membrane and dry it all out, you'd find it's about 40% lipid, but get this, a whopping 60% protein. That huge protein number is our first major clue. It's telling us that proteins aren't just sprinkled on for decoration, they are essential, active players here. The main building blocks are these incredible molecules called phospholipids. Now, they're called amphipathic, which is really just a fancy way of saying they have a split personality. One part of them absolutely loves water, and the other part hates it, can't stand it. And you can see that dual nature perfectly right here. The hydrophilic heads, the water lovers, they naturally turn towards the watery environment both inside and outside the cell. But the hydrophobic tails, the water-fearing part, they do everything they can to get away from the water. So they turn inward, facing each other to hide. And just like that, bam! This simple love-hate relationship with water forces them to automatically line up in a double layer, a bilayer. And that's the basic structure of our wall. But, a wall made of only phospholipids would be kind of flimsy. It could get too stiff or too runny depending on the temperature, and that's where our next ingredient comes in, cholesterol. This stuff is a brilliant stabilizer, wedging itself right in between the phospholipids to keep everything flowing just right. Cholesterol's role here is so clever. When things get cold, it acts like a little spacer, stopping the phospholipids from packing together too tightly and freezing solid. But when things heat up, it actually holds them back a bit, restraining their movement so the membrane doesn't melt into a puddle. It's the perfect temperature regulator. All right, on to our next section. So we've got our fluid wall, but a border isn't much good without guards, gates, and communication towers, right? Well, this is where the proteins come in. They are the active, hardworking crew of the cell membrane. Remember this number? 60%. Let that sink in. This isn't some minor ingredient. Proteins make up the majority of the membrane's mass. That figure alone should scream at you just how vital these guys are for the cell's survival. And what a team it is! Membrane proteins aren't just one-trick ponies. No way. They are enzymes that make reactions happen. They're the channels and pumps that transport materials in and out. They are the receptors that pick up signals from the outside world. They even convert energy. They pretty much do it all. We can basically group them into two main types. First, you've got the integral proteins. Think of these as permanent fixtures, deeply embedded in the membrane, often going all the way through, like a tunnel or a secure gate. Then you have peripheral proteins. They're more like the patrol guards, just hanging out on the surface, ready to help out or pass on a message. So we've seen all the components. We have a fluid wall made of lipids and cholesterol, and it's studded with this huge workforce of proteins. So let's put it all together and ask, what is the actual mission of this incredible structure? What does it do all day? Well, its job description is pretty long. First, it forms that selective barrier, obviously. Second, it uses that barrier to tightly control the cell's internal environment. Third, it's the communications hub. Fourth, it's in charge of recognition, knowing friend from foe. And finally, it can even generate electrical signals. It's a busy place. And a really critical point is that the membrane isn't the same everywhere. It's more like a mosaic of specialized neighborhoods. Its structure is tailored for its function.
For example, the membrane on a nerve axon is built for one thing, conducting electrical signals, while the tip of that same nerve is specialized for something else entirely, releasing chemicals. Different jobs need different tools. Makes sense, right? To really appreciate just how brilliant this design is, sometimes it helps to see what happens when it goes wrong. So let's look at a real-world clinical case of what happens when this border structure is compromised.
The condition is called hereditary spherocytosis, and it's all caused by a defect in one specific peripheral protein called spectrin. Remember those patrol guards on the surface? Spectrin is a key member of that team, and its main job is to help the red blood cell keep its proper shape. And wow, the difference is just night and day. A healthy red blood cell has this flexible, donut-like disc shape that lets it squeeze through the tiniest capillaries with no problem. But without enough spectrin, the membrane loses its support structure and the cell collapses into a fragile little sphere. These sphere-shaped cells get stuck in small blood vessels and are quickly destroyed, especially in the spleen. So, to sum it all up, one faulty component, that spectrin protein, leads to a major structural defect, where the red blood cells become these fragile spheres. This constant destruction of blood cells results in the classic symptoms: anemia, jaundice, and an enlarged spleen. It is a powerful and kind of scary example of how one tiny molecular error can have huge consequences for the entire body. So as we've seen, the cell membrane is so much more than just a bag holding the cell's guts in. It's a fluid, active, and profoundly intelligent system. Its elegant design isn't just cool, it is absolutely fundamental to the existence of every single cell, and because of that, to life itself. Which really just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The cell membrane is just one part of one cell. So if this tiny, almost invisible border is this complex and this brilliantly engineered, just try to imagine what other incredible marvels of engineering are at work inside you right now at this very moment.